All right, we're back, and it is COMP305 in the fall 2016 semester. And as Centennial, we are week 11, part 2 of our broadcast. We just finished talking about the final project and final presentation, which again is taking place of your final exam, and everybody again is required to present. Okay, so what we want to talk about now is I want to create an asset. And I want to use that asset to kind of exemplify what it looks like to create some animation, right, in our Unity game, 3D. So what I'm going to do for that is I'm going to bring up Blender. So please bring up Blender with me to do this, right? So here we go. We got Blender, and I want to make a coin in Blender. Okay. Now there's many ways to do this. But I'm going to kill my cube, so X to delete my cube. I'm going to bring out my little keypad because for Blender, you know, it's good to have this little keypad. I didn't use it in the first class, but I'll use it now. Right. So here's my little keyboard. Again, I'm using my keyboard so I can quickly switch between views. I'm also going to hide the camera and the lamp. All right, so what I want to do here is, and again, I recommend you follow me if you're going to make your own asset. So first, before we duplicate our project, we're going to make some assets. And we're going to do it in Blender. So the first asset we're going to make is this coin, right? So how do we make a coin? Well, there's a bunch of ways to do it. If I press Shift A, I can add a circle if I really want to. But that's kind of, I have to work really, really hard to make a coin from there. I could make it a sphere and flatten it out. That's another option for a coin. It wouldn't be exactly a coin. It'd be some kind of ovoid, right? I could use other ways, but my recommendation is using something like a cylinder, right? So here's the cylinder, and notice that it has 32 vertices. I'm just going to scroll in here. You can see that it's very circular looking, right? I'm just pressing down on the mouse wheel here just to pan around, and you can see that it's very circular, right? That's what a cylinder is like. But the great thing is once you create a cylinder, on the left, you can see that there's a couple of options. One of them is how many vertices I want. I want to cut this down to about 16. So I want to keep cutting it down until, or you can also type it in if you want, until it's about 16 vertices. Now it looks more coin-like from the top. Also, notice the cap fill on the top. There's different options for cap fill. We can do a triangle fan, an n-gon, or nothing. Right? If I do n-gon, it looks like this, like how we see it. If I go triangle fan, it looks similar, but when I go into if I tab in, I can see that each of the objects on the top of the cylinder itself looks like it's, you know, connected into the middle, right? Which probably won't do for us, right? So again, if I kind of go back out, so tab out, and Control Z or Command Z on the Mac, right? And Command Z again, and I set up my cylinder for the first time. So again, I'm putting a cylinder in. I've cut it down to 16 vertices. It remembered what I did, right? And now what I want to do is here in Object Mode, I want to shrink this down, and I'm going to use the scale, the S key across the Z-axis, so the Z afterwards, so S and then Z, and then I'm going to pull it down until I have something that looks like this. That's your kind of the flatness of the coin, right? Now what I want to do here is, and again, I've done this in many different ways before. I want to bring up my numeric bar over here, right? And on the right, you can see that my Z is around 0.133. I'm going to just change this to a hard number of 0.13, right? That's the scale. That's on the Z-axis. Okay, I want to modify the coin and give it a little bit of geometry, but I'm going to have some difficulty doing it like this. It looks like a pancake right now, right? And I want to make it so that it has some kind of geometry. It looks more like a coin. Now, there's a bunch of ways to do this, but one of the things I want to do is kind of modify the edges and extrude and so on. The problem is if I only do it on one side, I'm going to have to do double the work on the other side. So what's a really cool thing I could do if I was going to modify both the one side and the other side all at the same time, what would I do? Mirror, right? But in order for me to mirror, I'm going to have to split it in half, right? And I'm not going to split it in half like this. I'm going to split it in half like this, around this axis, right? So what I want to do is I want to rotate it across the x-axis 90 degrees, right? So, but I'm not going to do it here. If I did it here, right, inside object mode, right, what will happen is over here on the rotation side, you'll see it's rotated by 90 degrees. I want to do all the rotations and translations other than my scaling in edit mode. So I'm going to go tab into edit mode. Oh man, undo. Sorry, let me just pull my stuff together one more time. Sorry. La la la, ba 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 ba. And I'll put the cylinder together again. I'll change the triangle from triangle fan to n-gon. Sorry, that's what I wanted to do. And I'll just change the Z scaling to 0.13. There we go. Okay, so I'm still back. So I want to go into, again, edit mode here, right? And notice that in edit mode, I have one flat face on top. And I want to rotate this whole thing by 90 degrees along the x-axis. So I click R, and then X, and then 90. And then it's up this way. Remember, if I want to look at it from a front view, and what's the button I need to press on the numeric keypad to see it from the front view? 1. It looks like this. That's not going to help me. So that means I got to rotate it across the y-axis or across the z-axis another 90 degrees. So rotate across the z-axis 90 degrees. Yay. Then I'm going to go into orthographic mode, and I got to use the 5 key for that. So it's flat. Okay? And what I want to do is I want to split it. I want to have some kind of additional geometry, almost like another edge all the way down the middle. How do I do that? What's the keystroke sequence that I use or buttons that I press to get another edge down in here? Huh? I can't hear you. Loop cut. Loop cut is the way to go, right? So I could choose on the left, I could choose loop cut and slide, right? This one. And if I do that, and if I choose this way, you can see that if I'm on the left-hand side, it makes it a horizontal cut. If I go in the top, it makes it a vertical cut, which is what I want. And I'm going to press Enter again. So now I've got a loop cut that goes all the way around. Okay? All the way around. All right, now I want to go back to front mode, right? And I'm still in ortho mode. I'm going to press the Z key so I can see, I can kind of do wireframes, right? Deselect all, so it looks like this. And I want to take this left half off by using the B key, B select mode, right? Or border select. I want to select all these vertices and then press X to delete. And when I do that, it's going to ask me vertices or edges or faces. Just kill the vertices. And now I have half of my coin. Yeah, that's what you should have right now. Did I go too fast? You messed up? Don't worry, I'm gonna put the asset, my completed asset, I'm gonna put up on GitHub anyway, right? So try and follow along. It's good practice, but and again, is there another way to do this? Yes, there's many ways, right? But it's the way I'm thinking about it. Okay, cool. So I've got this thing over here as an example, and now what I want to do is I want to mirror. How do I mirror this thing? What do I press on? You guys don't remember? I want to mirror this thing. I'm gonna go to the wrench icon over here on the top, and I'm gonna add a modifier. I'm gonna choose mirror, and notice that it mirrors. If I press 5 again, so I can go to perspective mode again, it mirrors right along that edge that I want. So my coin is back, right? Because I've added a mirror modifier. Now, the only way it'll work is if you rotate it exactly like how I just did. Otherwise, you have to change the axis, the mirror axis, if it's not working this way. Let's press the Z key again to make it solid, so you can see the solid mode. Right now, the great thing is everything I do to one side happens to the other side. So it cuts us down on some work, which is really what we want to do here. Okay, here's the next thing I want to do. I want to select an entire edge loop. How do I do that? Do you know how to select an entire edge loop all at once? The easiest way is, first of all, to slip into edge mode. So go to Control Tab, go back to edge mode. You can also choose the button down here, right? And then right-click on the edge you wish to select, like this one. That's the edge I want to select, okay? And then I want to Alt right-click on another edge, or if you're a Mac user, Option right-click, like this. And now all the edges are selected, right? I want to also slip back into Vertex mode now, from edge select mode. So now these are all my edges and my vertices. And what I want to do is I want to extrude these edges. That's what I want to do, so that it produces additional geometry for me. So first I'm going to press the E key to extrude, and then press Enter. Now when I do that, what it does is it layers another set of vertices on top of the original ones. So there's two sets of vertices now on top of each other, right? This is good because now I can do something like this. I can press the S key and scale in. And I'm probably going to scale in, you know, again, if you were looking at it from a number perspective, right? Like you see how I'm scaling. I'm just going to scale in just a little bit. But if you look on the bottom, it says scale 0.93, something like 0.9, 0.87 to 0.9, something like that. There we go. That's down here where I was looking. So that's what it looks like right now. Again, it doesn't have to be exactly what I'm doing, but this is what I've done. I've kind of scaled in. Okay, now that I've got this extra ring of information, right? I'm going to press E for extrude again, and then Enter to create more control points. So I've got another set of control points now. Every time I do that E and then Enter, E extrudes more points, and I double the amount of vertices that I have. Why? Because now when I want to extrude again, instead of extruding this way like I could do, I want to extrude in to produce that rim that I want to. Right? So there is the rudiments of my coin. Right? And it does them both on both sides equally. Nice and equal. Okay? Pretty simple stuff. It's not that crazy, but all stuff you've done before. It's good practice. Okay. This is nice, but it's got no geometry. I mean, it's simply just a coin that looks like this. Now, you're going to find a problem. If I want to split this face up, it's going to be impossible. If I click Subdivide, it actually doesn't subdivide anything. It just adds additional control points here. Look, right? That's all it does, all along these edges. So I'm going to undo that. Because if you probably didn't see that, but there's actually extra vertices that were created, right? And even if I go into Control Tab and go into Face Select mode, you can see that I've got these faces and this face, right? There's a face, right? But even when this face is selected and I click on Subdivide, it actually doesn't do what I want it to do. It doesn't do it at all. So I'll undo that. So I can't subdivide this face. Why is that? Because it's an n-gon. When I created the cap for my cylinder, it created an n-gon. I wanted the cap, right? Because it helped me with my geometry to create my the information that I have there, right? On one hand. But on the downside, it really doesn't do anything for me, so I'm going to get rid of it. Now, again, you could stop right here and just texture your coin to give it a face and whatever, and you don't have to do much more than this if you don't want to, right? For me, I'm going to continue, so I'm just going to click X to delete all my faces, which is just this face. So now I have like what looks like a wheel, right? Or a tire. Okay, how do I make another face that I can use, you know, for like a geometry, a face that I can actually modify the geometry on? Well, it's actually quite easy, right? I'm going to select some vertices. I'm going to go Control Tab and go into Vertex Select mode. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just rotate the wheel that I have and just select, Shift Select, Shift right click, basically, these two vertices, right? And then if you notice, there's vertices that are completely across from those ones, and they're probably these ones here. See how those kind of vertices align? I'm just going to click these two, Shift right click, right? So I've got kind of a pattern where I can go from here to here, right? Now, if it's not here or here, or if it's here to there, it doesn't really matter. If I press F now, I get this, you know, this little middle part that goes from one side to the other side. Okay. This is a face that can be subdivided, however. And I want to subdivide it because I want to connect these ones somewhere on this edge, right? So the way to do that is to go to over on the left and subdivide. Now, by default, it subdivides it this way and this way. This is fine, right? The great thing is that I have a point that's point of subdivision right here, right? And if you notice, the subdivisions are only one cut. I can do 2 cuts, which gives me a great amount of control points here and here. Take a look, right? And this is what I want, these 2 control points, because now I can link to them right from here. I can add additional ones if I really wanted to go crazy. Like I can go into 3 cuts, right? And 3 cuts might work better because now I have points where all of these things can connect to, right? So I can create that stuff. I'm going to go back down to 2 though, just so we can align with what we did in the first class. All right, I'm gonna click A to click away, right? And one thing I like the fact that I got these, right? But these are going to become an issue for me. I'll show you that later on. All right, so I'm going to click this one, I'm going to click this one, and I'm going to click this one, these 3 points, and then press F, and I've got a bit of a fan there. This one, and then this one, and then this one, and click F, and creates another face, right? And I'll do it again for this one, and this one, F. But for this one and this one, right, I'm going to click this one and this one as well. So to create a different shape. It's almost like a cross, if you will. Well, you can create whatever you want. I'm just trying to make a coin that's a little weird, different, right? Let's do the rest really quickly. So I'm going to do this one, and again, I'll start over here. It's easier for me to start with these ones. And I'll just keep going, right? So you can see where I'm going with this. Now, from a geometry perspective on the left, you can see that it's perfectly flat. It doesn't really do anything. But I'm giving additional control points to give myself more control. That's what it is. So again, I'm just going to do that really quickly. And in Unity, right, the great thing about this is it'll give me whatever control I need, right, to create my coin the way I like. Remember, these ones are a little bit different over here. So to create that same shape on this side. So here we go. I'll start over here again because it's easier for me to align things properly. So nice and easy. So all we're doing is replicating this. Now for people who are watching at home, you can make your own shapes on the coin. But why did I do all this? Because now what I could do is do something like this. Control Tab and go into face select mode. Select these faces, right? Almost across, right? And then what I can do is I can press E for extrude, enter, right? So I get additional geometry points, right? And then E, and then pull it out just a tab, just a tad there, just like this, about halfway out, to create that geometry around the coin, a weird kind of coin. And if I want to really be crazy, because I created additional geometry, I could even scale it in. So I could do something like S to scale and pull it in a little bit. So it kind of produces a ramping effect, like this. Right? So that's the coin. It looks the same on the other side because I'm mirroring. Now that's my special pickup. Your special pickup can look totally different. You can add a different design here. You can make it so it looks like an eagle or something else or whatever else you want to put on the inside. You can also vary some of the stuff on the inside. Like for example, just to make it different than what we did in the first class, I could also continue to choose these things here. And again, we want to make it certainly flat, but maybe what I want to do is I want to pull it in a little bit, just a touch. So I'm not going to extrude here. I'm just going to organically push this in a little bit, so it's a little bit tapered, right on the middle, right? And so it looks like a wheel or a crown or whatever you want to call it. People call it different things. Okay. Well, this is nice, and we've got our coin. I'm going to go back into object mode, but the problem is it's pretty boring because it doesn't have any color, right? And the way we do color, of course, is we attach material to our objects, right? But before we do that, notice that over here in object mode only, all right? If you try to do this in edit mode, it won't work. You got to click the apply button of my mirror modifier. If I do that, click apply. And if I go back into edit mode, now my geometry is duplicated everywhere. right? Which is what I want. Now it's an actual mesh because I've duplicated my geometry everywhere. Okay. All right, so here's my little coin that I made. Great. I want to add in some color, right? I'm clicking the N button there to kind of take away that numeric bar. And I'm going to scroll to where I can see the material. Also, one thing to note is I should probably change my scene, right? My scene settings, so that way it's metric. I definitely want to go to metric because I'm going to import this into Unity. It's much easier from a scaling perspective to just choose metric, right? And then I'm going to go back into my materials and create a new material called gold because I want to make a gold-looking material, right? So I want to make a gold coin. Gold. Cool. Well, it doesn't look like gold. It looks like silver or some kind of gray, right? That's the default material that I got. So I go to my diffuse property under my material and change it so that it's kind of goldy. I mean, more towards the yellow, if you want. Now it's kind of goldy looking. You can also change the specular view. Here's my specularity here, which is kind of the reflectivity or the ability for it to reflect light. And I can change it so instead of it being completely white, right, I can make it so that it's kind of on the orange side, right? And what does this do for me? Well, what it does is it creates almost like an orange reflection along the edges to create almost like more of a gold-like effect, right? Notice this is the preview. Now I'm using the standard shaders. If I increase the intensity here for my color, I can really brighten this thing up or dull it down. I want to brighten it up. And on my Lambert side, I can choose different kinds of shader. So this is the standard matte shader called Lambert. I can also, and these are both shaders, one specular shader and the other one is diffuse shader, right? The diffuse shader, I can choose something else, like if I want a Fresnel, it's very bright, and notice it has its own, it can emit its own light. Doesn't really go with what I want here, and I'm not seeing the effect because right now I'm in solid mode. I want to move from solid mode to material mode, and I can see what it does. It kind of dulls out my effect. That's not what I want. But I want to point out there's other shaders here you can use other than Lambert, right? Let's leave it at Lambert for now. You can see that I still get my detail. And I don't have to choose Couture. I prefer Phong, actually, as a specular shader, which is a little bit more, it translates nicer for OpenGL as well, and WebGL. So that's why I'm using a Phong shader for my specularity. I can also want to increase the intensity of my specularity so that's right up, so it's really shiny looking. Okay. I also want to make this emit a little bit of light, right? So it's like kind of glowy. And I can do that by changing the shading property down here inside my material just to increase the light a little bit so it has its own inner glow. Now you can see what it looks like, almost like a shiny gold coin, right? Now, if you want to make this even shinier, you can change the material, which is what we're going to do with our here with our texture. So I'm going to add a texture. You can stop here if you want to just add this as a coin, right? If you really wanted to, but I'm going to keep going, right? So texture, I'll make a new texture that I want to use here, but I need a texture to choose from. And again, I recommend going to something like textures.com. I'm looking at a texture you can search for it called bronze copper 0037, right? If you want to find this, I did this in the earlier class. This is the texture I'm going to use, right? Bronze copper 0037, right? In textures.com. And if you download it, of course, you'd have to sign up for downloading it. I've already downloaded it, and I've got it here on the desktop, right here, bronze copper. And what I'm going to do is I want to assign this texture. I want to project this texture onto my material. That's what I'm going to do. Okay? So I'm going to call this bronze copper. So a new texture, right? Again, I'm going to rename this thing bronze copper. It's going to be. And I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to choose open an image, right? And I'm going to choose that image on the desktop called bronze copper and click open image. And now this is what it's going to look like. It's not really showing up here because I haven't really unwrapped the texture. Remember, I can simply just do it by going into edit mode, selecting all, and then pressing U for unwrapped and unwrap. And what it does is it produces this texture. Now, it's not exactly what I'm looking for, and it usually never is. So what I can do, and what I want to do, right, is fix some of this up. Let's go back into, I'm in edit, object mode. We'll go back to edit mode. And I'm going to choose unwrap, U, and reset, because I don't want my texture to be anything yet. What I also want to do is I want to combine some of these faces to make it a little easier for me. So I'm going to kind of do what we did last time, right? So combine those and these to make one solid face. It's going to make it look a little nicer, right? And I can do that by pressing F, right? We're going to go back to fix this in a second. And the same thing goes with these. I can probably do a little bit of these, a little bit different from what I did in the first class, right? Because I want to make these as smooth as I can now that I've got my shape, right? Same thing with over on this side. Probably could have done this in mirror mode, but who cares? Again, it doesn't take a lot of work here for me to do. But again, anything you can save from a work perspective is probably a good thing. So again, I'm going to kind of grab all these ones and smooth them out so that they're all one. And you might want to even do that for the sides because, again, you don't need these separations anymore. You've got your shape, right? So you can probably do all these, right, as one. And if I showed you what it looked like, sometimes it messes up, right, like this. Because why? It's trying to figure out the geometry of how to do that curve, right? So I can undo that. What you may want to do instead is do one of these, right, which is a little bit easier to kind of view to create your coin or pickup. Again, I'm making just a custom coin, and you can make it look a little differently. You can also add in additional geometry or kill some of the geometry that I have in there. Undo. But just in order for you to make so that the texture works better, that's what I'm doing, because I've got a lot of different faces that I don't really need. Now, I'm not going to change the little ones. The little faces that are in between the coin, you can go crazy and do that. I'm not going to spend my time going crazy. Okay, cool. So I've got all those faces, and I could probably do the same thing with these, but I'm not going to do that. You get the picture, right? So these, one face, one face, one face, one face. This is one big face, and the same thing on the opposite side, right? So that way I can go in there and do whatever changes I want. Okay, great. So if this isn't working for you, like I said, better for you to go into UV editing mode, right? Here it is. And again, what I want to do is I want to do a different kind of projection. But here, first, I want to choose the texture. There's the texture I want. And when I project, there it is. When I project, I press U for unwrap, and I could try different projections. Like, for example, if I click unwrap, right, that's the default that I get right there. I'm going to show you what it looks like. Here's what it looks like. Kind of looks messed up. I don't like that. If I unwrap again and choose something like cylinder projection, you get kind of something like this. That doesn't make any sense, although it's not that bad from what the final result is. Like, it kind of looks okay, like a burnished object, right? And again, I'll take away some of that effect over on the side here by taking this see-through thing so you can see what it looks like. This is my preview, right? I could use that, like this little cylinder thing. I could try other ones too, like cube projection. That looks messed up. And then probably something that might work the best is something called Smart UV Project. And click OK. Now this works probably the best that I've seen it work. You can see how that it doesn't strain the texture or pull it or skew it in any way, which is kind of cool. The only thing that probably will be weird is this part and down here, because there's three different parts to this one, which is perfectly fine. I might want to make this scale up a little bit, so I focus my mouse on this side, press the S key for scaling, and then just scale up a little bit to see, you know, maybe where there's not some kind of, there's an edge right there. There we go. That might look okay, but not too much bigger than that, right? See, I got a bit of an edge there. And if you don't like that, again, you can go back to what it was, right? So, you know, always scale down. Again, you don't want to see, you don't want to see too many edges, like, because it repeats, right? If you go too much bigger. See that? Maybe better. Okay, so now that I've got that, I'm going to go back into default mode. Here it is. Here's my default mode. Back into object mode, and I want to get some more, cast some more light here so we can see what we're dealing with. So again, I'm going to open up the light again, and then this light I'm going to duplicate by pressing Shift D. And again, right, just so that we understand what we're looking at. Of course, I'm looking at it way from the bottom. If I go from the top, by the way, this is the top, and you can see that I've got these lights way out of whack, right? Because from my perspective, that's where they were, right? So I'm going to kind of put them closer and closer so I can see that this object is lit up enough so I can see what it's really going to look like from a game perspective, right? All right, so that's what the coin is finally going to look like. It's not that bad, right? What I want to do is I want to add in on my coin itself, just to test what it will look like when it's got a little bit of bump, like a normal mapping. I want to go down to the normal map, choose geometry. This kind of looks like stone, but I'm going to reduce this down to about 0.15. So 0.15. Okay. Kind of give a roughness to it, the coin. That's what I want it to look like. And if you want to look at to see how its specularity looks like, you can increase or decrease the specularity so it looks less plastic. But I'm pretty good with this thing right now. And that's my coin. Okay, again, you can make yours a little bit differently. You can change the way it looks, whatever, add different colors, change different textures, whatever you like. Now, on the material side, one thing I recommend is actually on both material and texture. So this is the example of what it's going to look like. Here's a good example of it. But on the texture side, if I scroll up where I pick the image, there's a little button here that I recommend you press, which will keep the mapping for the texture. So click this little button right here. It's next to the source image. So it kind of bonds or packs the image together. And it tells me what you want to pack it as. Pack image as a ping image. That's what you want to do on the left, right? So it packs it up with the blend file, right? That's one. And the other thing you want to do is, from a mapping perspective, you want to choose UV map. Okay, so again, that basically decides that the mapping is going to be adhered to. I'm going to save this Blender file right now. So I'm going to say save. I'm going to put it on my desktop. I'm going to call this coin.blend. Okay, so coin.blend, save file. Cool. All right, we got our coin. It looks ugly, but it looks exactly like the coin that I want. All right, if you believe me. Now, here's the next thing that I want to do. I want to animate my coin here in Blender, right, so that it spins. Now, Blender, we've been looking at it the whole time, right? But on the bottom here, there's an area that shows us almost like a little animation, a minor animation window down here, right? So what am I talking about when I say animation? I want to think about how many frames per second, right, our animation occurs in Unity. How many frames per second are we dealing with typically? What do you say? Guess. 60. All right? So do I really need 250 frames here? Because that's how much it is here. If you notice, it goes from 1 to 250. Do I need all these frames? No, I can change this to 60. When I do that, it kind of slims the number of frames I'm dealing with right down. Now, because my mouse is focused down here, I can use the scroll wheel and also pull this down here to really scroll in to see all my frames. So you can see that this is frame 5, frame 10, frame 15, and so on. Right now, I'm at frame 1. See right here, frame 1? Okay, I'm going to pull this down a little bit so I can see this. So what I want to do is, we want to do something called keyframes. I want to kind of use keyframes to capture the positions of my object in three-dimensional space at different times. Okay? Now, I could use every single frame, so 60 frames, I could capture different positions 60 times. But there's a really much easier way of doing it. What Blender does, it uses interpolation to create the in-betweens, right, between one keyframe and another. Now, if I want to rotate my coin 360 degrees, right, and I have 60 frames to do it, how many cuts, how many keyframes do you think I should use, right? These almost like a capture to capture the different states of my coin. What do you recommend? 2? That's like, I mean, you could probably do that, but that's crazy, right? You could, but for smoother animation, my recommendation is you make a couple of additional keyframes, right? In fact, I would use 6, right? That's 1. If I divide 60 by 6, it's 10. So 1 every 10 frames, I'm going to capture the change in direction. And if I do 6 times, that means each frame, each keyframe is going to be about 60 degrees of rotation. Okay? Now, you don't have to do that. You can go 0 and from the beginning to the end. And it'll interpolate all that stuff for you too. But sometimes you get some really weird errors. Okay? So how do I do this? First, I'm going to bring up the numeric keypad here on the right. Okay? And what I want to do here is, with my image selected, right, I want to capture the initial state of the image, which is 0, 0, 0, 0. It's all zeros, right? And the way I can do that is if you go to Object, Animation, notice that Insert Keyframe is the I key, right? So I click I. And now it asks me, what do I want to insert? Do I want to track location only, rotation only, scaling only, location and rotation, location and scale, or all of them? Let's do all of them. There's an issue here. Well, there is going to be a problem in Unity, but let's call them. Let's do all of them for a second. Notice that they all light up. I've captured a keyframe, a time slice of what this object looks like in 3-dimensional space. That's what my keyframe is. Okay. Now I want to go to the next keyframe, which is going to be frame 10. So I'm going to move this one. Just to type it into keyframe. So I'm moving the playhead to frame 10. The playhead was at frame 1. Now it's at frame 10. What do I have to do here? I've got to rotate this by 60 degrees across the z-axis, right? So I move this z-axis to 60 degrees. Right, there it is. And now, once I've rotated it, I want to capture another keyframe, which is the I key. And I'm going to choose rotation, location, rotation, and scale. Notice that it goes from green when I do that to yellow to show you that it's been captured. Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing. So it's moved. I'm going to move my playhead to the next next keyframe, which is going to be the frame 20, right? I'm going to move this to 120 degrees. Okay, there it is, 120 degrees. Press the I key, location, rotation, and scale. Okay, now I'm going to do the next keyframe, which is keyframe 30, right? And I'm going to change the rotation to 160 degrees, or 180 degrees, sorry. That'll be okay. 180 degrees, and then press I for location, rotation, and scale. So I'm inserting keyframes here. Okay, now I'm going to go to the next keyframe, which is keyframe 40, right? And I'm going to rotate this to 240 degrees, right? And I'm going to press I and choose location, rotation, and scale. And I'm going to go to the other one, right? I'm going to go to 50, and now I'm going to ask you a question here, right? I'm going to rotate this to 300 degrees, right? Here it is, and press I. Do I need to go to the end? Oh, you guys were wrong. People who said no. Let me show you what it looks like. Take a look at this, the play. If I play, Blender has the ability for me to simulate the rotation. This is what it looks like now. Watch. Right? I can't. I got to go to 360, guys. And please don't put 0 at the end. What is it going to do if you can put 0? It's going to flip the other way, which will look really weird, right? So that's not what you want. I want to go to 60, the key, what we call frame 60, and I want to go from 300 to 360, right? There we go. There's 360, which is equivalent to 0. Now I want to press another keyframe, insert, location, rotation, and scale. Now I've got all my keyframes. Okay, I want to save that. Now I have a full animation, and I did it all in Blender. And when I press play, you're going to see still there's a bit of a loop that happens right there, because Blender is trying to loop it all. Don't worry about that. Leave it the way it is. It's okay, right? Okay, so you see that it keeps rotating around and around. That's what it's going to look like. Okay, but it's going quite slow. And the reason why it's going quite slow is because our rendering, here's our render button, right? It's rendering at 24 frames per second. We want to render at 60 frames per second, which is what it's going to really look like. Yeah, it's a bit of a loop, but who cares, right? You can tighten it up, and again, there's different ways of doing that, right? By going to frame 59 and changing the keyframe from 59 to, what it is. Be careful though. Be very careful, right? Also, remember, I'm using 60 frames to do this. I could use only 30 frames and have many more keyframes inside, or I can do what you said. Go from the first to the end. Yeah.
The issue is that the animation between frames kind of makes kind of a curve.
Yes, and
you flat it out, you can just use 2 keyframes.
Yes, which is the same thing. Yeah, because what you're talking about is an easing that happens between keyframes. That's what's happening. And that's why it's causing the motion to seem kind of slowing down, which is perfectly fine. I'm okay with this kind of weird effect. But it's good that you're mentioning this. For us, for this, it's okay. All right? But yes, you're right. And you can look at the animation curve to see what's happening. For those people who are interested, because I changed my frame rate to 60. Okay? Now, if I go to, I can also look at the animation window. An animation window will actually show you what it's really doing. Okay? So it's showing you this scale here, and it tells you this rotation and location of the scale is what's happening, right? So really cool. Now notice it's using an F curve, right? Well, I'm looking at the F curve window, and I'm seeing what it can do. You can obviously modify or fool with the F curve window. I'm not going to do that right now because sometimes it gives you some really weird effects. So let's leave it alone for now. You'll see it doesn't really translate that badly in Unity. Okay. Let's go back to default mode. There it is. And we're going to stop rotating, just pressing the pause button. There it is. Well, we've got this Blender animation. And the great thing about this, and this is what I want to point out to you guys, right? When you look at this thing, okay, when you're looking at this, first of all, I don't know what this other cylinder is. It looks like an empty object. Let's get rid of it. I don't know how that came to be. We're just going to get rid of it out of the hierarchy. Woohoo! And we're going to change this thing so it says coin, not cylinder, right? Because it's better from a naming perspective when we bring it into Unity. So it says the right thing, right? Okay, so that is really what we've got in Blender. And we're going to save this file again one more time. Now I want to bring this file into Unity, right? And for this, while I'm going to take a break in a second, is I want to create another Unity project, right, based on the last week's project that instead of starting from scratch. So let's do that. So I'm going to kind of go out of here. Notice that I have all my files right here, right? And I'm going to go into my Unity project. So I have that under Unity projects. And I've got lesson 10B, which I'm going to use to create lesson 11B. So I'm going to kind of duplicate. And this is going to be lesson 11B. One day when it allows me to, it's not finished yet. I'm not patient. Sorry. It's got like 130 megs or something like that to copy. Okay, there we go. And then I'm going to change this to 11B. Okay? And that's what this one is. Now, what I want to do with this one is I want to kill GitHub. So clear. And what I want to do is I want to get into that one. Oops, wrong one. That's the one. I want to create a GitHub repository here. So I'm going to kind of say cd, pull this over here, press enter. Right? And then I want to remove -rf git repository. I want to create a new one. So I'm going to say git init. There it is. And then git add dot. And add all those in. Lots of stuff. Again, this is lesson 11 that I'm making, right? And once this is done, I'm going to say git commit. When it's letting me, it's got a lot of stuff to add, as you can see. Git commit -m, and I'll say initial commit. There we go. Now we need a GitHub repository to put everything on, right? And I'm going to create a new one here, up online. So that's from this morning's class. Here's my new repository, COMP305, F2016, lesson 11B. And that'll be your lesson for today. Grab all this. And I'm going to go down to here and paste and enter. What this is going to do is going to compress everything first and then put everything up. Now, right now, as of this time, at this time, we're probably just over 100 megs, 101 or something like that, which is pretty compact for what we've done. Right? Remember, because we've been importing as opposed to adding every asset that we don't need. Okay? So you notice that it's going to be just over 101 megs. Okay, 106 megs. Yay, cool. So we've got everything now, and this is a great place to stop for a break. When we come back, I'm going to take our Blender model and bring it into Unity, and then use the Blender animation inside Unity to make it go. So for now, if you haven't been able to follow along, please go up online and download that, download the stuff that I've got up there right now. One thing that I probably want to do actually before you do that, hold on a second, one more thing. Before you download, right, is I want to launch Unity. This is probably the right thing to do first, right? So here, I'm going to open Unity, go to 11B. Sorry, I apologize. So again, it's COMP305, F2016, 11B. And what I want to do here is when I open it up, I want to drag and drop that Blender stuff inside of here, right? So that way you can have it right away, so you don't have to do the Blender model by yourself. So here's my models. I want to drag my Blender stuff in here. So I'm going to go up here into my desktop, and you can see there's my coin blend model. I'm going to drag my coin blend model in here. There it is, right? Now notice that if I look at my coin blend model, it has what looks like a material on it, because inside materials there is the coin material, right? That's what I called it, chances are, right? It's not showing here, but there is a coin material, and I got to check to see what it's called, right? If I look at my coin, my material itself is here, right? Here's my coin material. So it's got that. It also has the animations. If I look at the animations and actually click play, you see that the animations are working. And there's very little hippity hop there compared to what it was like in Blender, right? That's why it's okay. So the animation came across, okay? And that's what the idea here is. The idea is that I want to bring the animations, the best place to do animations in Blender or Maya or in someplace else, and then bring it into Unity. Much more control. Unity, you can do stuff, but it's not meant for that, right? Better to do it in a real program. Okay, that's number one. Second thing is I don't have the textures. That didn't come across. So I want to bring in my texture, and then I'll drop everything and upload everything to GitHub. So I'm going to grab my texture, which is bronze copper, and drag and drop it into my textures folder. And then it'll convert it. Right, so I have my bronze copper texture. It is a texture. And what I want to do with my material, right, here's my material. Now there's these ones, but my materials that I'm looking at, I don't know what it is. And the way to know that when I bring my coin in is to grab my coin model, which is this, and bring it into the scene somehow. It doesn't matter where it's at right now. I just want to see it. Notice that the material says bronze copper. That's what it's called, right? So if I look inside the materials folder, there's a material called bronze copper, which is what I called it. And if I go into textures, I have a bronze copper texture that I'm going to drag into the albedo side to give it that texturing, right? Just like I've done before, right? And I'm also going to duplicate it, right? So I want to duplicate this texture, and I can do that through the edit menu, duplicate. Or I can go Control or Command D and change the name of the second one that's exactly the same as the first one to _n. I'm going to use this one as the normal map, right? So if I go to models or materials, and if I look at bronze copper, and I go back to textures, and I can also pick them, by the way, by clicking these little buttons here. I want to change it from standard to standard specular setup. And I'm going to drag and drop my N, this one, over into specular, which is going to ask me when I do that, well, it should have asked me when I did that, do you want to convert it to, actually I didn't want to do that, let's kill that. I wanted to drag it into normal map, that's what I wanted to do. It's going to ask me when I fix it. And if I do want to fix it, it's going to turn it into a normal map. There we go. But I want to change the normal map to 0.15 like I did before, so it's not so bumpy. Right? There you go. Makes sense? So that's the stuff. Now, from a smoothness perspective, I want to bring up the smoothness. This one is a little duller, but as I bring it towards the right, it becomes a lot shinier, which is what I want to do with this material, right? I could also increase the emission rate a little bit. If I go to 1, it's fully emissive, right? But I want to make this a little higher, so I can go 0.1, right? Which makes it a little brighter. And if it's not bright enough for you, you can even go higher, right? So it's kind of a brightness. Maybe that's too much, 0.15. Probably right. Okay, there we go. So now I've got my material. Now, if I want to look at my coin, what it looks like now in the scene, notice that's buried in there. It looks pretty good, right, from what I got in there. I want to bring this up. So I'm going to kind of bring this up so I can see it, right? There we go. But that's what the coin looks like right now. All right, so when a player plays the game, that's what he sees. He sees this, right? Now it's red because of these guys, right? Sorry. Yeah, I gotta fire at these guys and kill them all, right? But notice that's what the thing looks like. There's another one coming. Probably another one coming somewhere else too in a second. They're all going to converge. Anyways, but the idea is that it's cool, but I can pass right through it, right? Because there's nothing on it right now. I've got nothing on this thing to make it look cool at all. It also has a shadow. It casts a shadow, which is fine with me. I can make it cast a shadow if you like, right? But there's a couple things. One, it's too high up, right? It's also on the side of where it's supposed to be. I probably want to pull it so it's in front of my player a little bit, so I can see it. Oops. That's one thing. Oh, sorry, drag it across here. Okay, so this is where it is right now. So it's not exactly too far away anymore. But you can see how tall that is. It looks like it's a lot taller than it should be, or higher up. So again, left click, reduce that size a little bit, right? So it's a little bit lower. Now, I have an animator, and I'm going to get to this when we come back from break. But one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to save the scene, right? I'm going to save the project. I'm going to quit Unity, and I'm going to go back into this. And now I'm going to do something like git add dot git commit -m, and I'll say added coin asset. Okay, this what this is going to do is, and then git push origin master, of course. We're just going to push everything up to GitHub. I'm doing this so that way you have everything. Now grab everything, so you don't have to do the coin. Okay, if you're behind, you can always grab stuff. Yes. It says 11B. Oh yeah, yeah I am. Yeah I am, but it's okay because I can always. Did you grab the wrong one? It's okay. Grab another one here. So to fix this, I have a perfect fix. I can remove. I can look at git remote. Thank you for that. My remote origin. I can say git remove origin. Sorry, git. Is it git remove origin or oh sorry git remove remote. Remote remove origin. And then if I go get remote, nothing. Now I can add another remote. Sorry about that. I didn't add the right remote because this isn't Seriopolis. This is not me. This is not Centennial. So I'm going to go into settings, and thank you for that. And I'm going to delete my repository. I always love running into problems like this to fix them. This is the quick fix. And I want to do the same thing, but this time I'll choose Centennial. I'll be okay. Okay, here's a great thing. Because I didn't kill my GitHub and all I did was kill my remote, now I can take those commits and still use the same commits on the new remote, right? So the remote is going to get all the new commits. And now it should be something like 120 megs or 118 megs, something like that. Or maybe less. And now you'll have the right one. Bueno. Jace. Where'd that come from? I like it too. What's that? Overlord. All right. Okay, so if you look up online now, you can see that that would be the right one, right? Because now it's COMP305 F2016 lesson 11B. There we go. So please go there and grab it. Even though the solution says 10B, it's okay. It's still a lesson B, 11B, and we'll be fine. Okay, I'm going to stop recording now for sure. We'll come back with more.